Hello, my name is Tom and welcome back to another episode of me mispronouncing authors' names. It's been a long time since I filmed the first part of this two-part thing I was doing for the BuzzWord Reading Challenge. A lot of things have happened since then. I had a tooth out and then Christmas happened. Yeah, so let's get on with it. In this video I'm going to be talking about the BuzzWord Reading Challenge prompts for 2022, and I'm going to be giving a few suggestions and talking about what I might be reading this year. If you don't know what the BuzzWord Reading Challenge is, it's set up by Kayla from Books and Lala. I speak a bit more on it in my previous video, which I'll link in the description, and I'll also put the Books and Lala announcement video in the description as well. So the prompt for January is question words, and I only have one book that fits this prompt, and it's also a book that I don't really want to read at the moment, and that book is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. I picked this book up after the Netflix adaptation was announced, and I thought that because it had an adaptation, a lot of people must have liked it. But after picking it up, I found a lot of reviews that made me not really want to read this book anymore. But as it happens, it's the only book I have on my physical TBR that fits this prompt. And the whole point of me doing this reading challenge is to take books off of my physical TBR. So it looks like I'm going to be reading this book in January. I didn't mention that I am absolutely surrounded by books for this video, and I really hope that I've got them in the right order. So the prompt for February was pronouns and possession words, and I found a couple for this one. The first one that I picked out was his dark materials, his being the prompt word. And obviously this is the first book from the Northern Lights series, which is really popular and again was recently adapted. Next I have a couple of thrillers. Her Name Was Rose by Claire Allen and Let Me Lie by Claire McIntosh. And then I have a book that I'm really excited to get to, which is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Barry. This book looks so interesting. The basic premise is that a school hockey team appeals to the devil in order to help them win a tournament, and they get turned into a hive mind or something. It sounds so interesting, but I don't think that this is the book that I will be reading for February, because I think I'm going to be reading Shatter by Tahira Mafi. I have had this book on my physical TBR for such a long time. I got it as a set with the first 4 books in the series, so I have the first 4 books on my shelf, and I haven't read any of them yet. This book follows a teenager who can kill with a touch. I'm a little bit worried that it's going to be a bit young for me now. It was probably the right age when I bought it, but I don't read much YA fantasy at the moment, so I'll see how I feel about this book. The prompt for March is locations, and there are a lot of options for this one. If you're struggling to find a book for March, I would recommend to start with Agatha Christie, because there are loads of place names in her titles. I have 2 on this pile as examples. I have Death on the Nile and Murder in Mesopotamia, but there are lots of options for Agatha Christie in this prompt. I also have a couple more examples. Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich, and I have Pig Island by Mo Hader. This sort of leaks into the next group of books that you could use for this prompt, and that is books with more abstract places in the title. I have The Poison Garden by Alex Marwood as an example for this one. This looks very interesting. This is a thriller based around a cult, I believe. And then I also have finally the one that I think I'm going to go with. Again, because I've had this one on my physical TBR for a long time, and it's another group that can go with this prompt, with it be having a fictional place name in the title. So I have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Obviously, again, we have another book that's been adapted. I think I'm going to be reading a lot of books that have been adapted. And supposedly this one is very good. The prompt for April is big, little, sort of hyperlatives, I suppose. And I only managed to find one book for this prompt, but it's a book that I am quite excited to read. And that is Tall Bones by Anna Bailey. To be perfectly honest, this was a cover buy. I think it looks very creepy. And because it's thrillery, I haven't really read the synopsis, so I don't know what it's about. But I'll read the first few lines. When 17-year-old Emma leaves her best friend Abigail at a party in the woods, she believes that their lives are just beginning. Many things will happen that night, but Emma will never see her friend again. That's all I'm going to read, because I hate spoilery synopsis for thrillers. But that sounds very interesting. I think it's a small town, abandoned ghost town sort of thing. The prompt for May is directions, and I have two books for this prompt. I have East of Desolation by Jack Higgins, so this has one of the classical directions in the title. And then I also have The Upside of Unrequited by Becky Albertalli, so up being the buzzword in this title. The buzzword prompt for June is the word all. I had a little bit of trouble finding some books for this one, but I did manage to. The first one is So Long and Thanks for All the Fish by Douglas Adams. I won't be reading this one because it will be a reread for me. I've read all of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, this being the fourth book of the trilogy. But I would highly recommend it. I know the first book is the most well-known one, but I do think that the whole series is pretty good. We're following lots of good characters. And then the book that I think I'm going to read for this one is my first non-fiction book for this list, and that is All for Love, Endless Trekking in Search of Begonia by Dr. Ching-I Peng. I'm not sure who actually wrote the words that are in this book, because I believe it was published posthumously. Yeah, it appears to have been published by an Amy Peng, and it's translated by San A. Lee and Felicia S. Lee. This book talks about Dr. Peng, a leading scholar in Begonia, and who unfortunately passed away in 2018. And this book features some of his talks on the topics. It says here that he gathered over 25,000 specimens and named 121 varieties of begonia. So yeah, if you are a plant person like me, you may be interested in this sort of book. I actually don't have any begonia, but it would just seem like a very interesting book on the actual research that goes into tropical plants. The buzzword prompt for July is bookwords. I have a couple here. I have The Diary of the Bookseller by Sean Bethel. This book looks really interestingly set out. It's almost like a business diary, and there are records of orders, what happened on each day. Some of them have the takings, so this will be an interesting book about how bookshops actually work. I have The Book Thief by Marcus Zuzak. This is a classic. And I also have The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. This was adapted recently, and I watched the film and I absolutely loved it, and I am very excited to read the book. And it's also nice and short. It's only 156 pages. The prompt for August is item or object, and there's so many options for this prompt. So I just picked out two contrasting ones. The one I think I'd like to read is The Sword of the Templars by Paul Christopher. I've been looking for a good excuse to read this book. It's archaeological thriller, I believe, which is a subgenre that I really like, and I own a couple of other books in the series as well. And I was delighted to discover that the font is huge, and that makes my life a lot easier. The other book that I picked out for this prompt was The Skylight by Louise Candlish. This is one of the reading agency quick reads that they release every so often. So it's lovely and short, and it was only £1. The pile of books that I've already talked about is growing and it very much looks like it's going to fall over. I think I'm going to have to sort that out. Okay, the October prompt was creatures and animals. I have things in the wrong pile. Hang on. Okay, I've got it sorted now. The October prompt, creatures and animals. Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. I know Anthony Horowitz as a middle grade author mainly. I have read some of his thrillers and some of his fantasy as well. I don't know really what age group this book is, and if it is YA, I have never read any of his books for older age groups, so I'd be excited to read this one. Then I have Call of the Raven by Wilbur Smith with Corbin Addison. The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks, and this is from the perspective of a triple murderer, I believe. And finally I have When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman. The prompt for September was light or dark. So here I have The Dark Crusader by Alistair MacLean, one of my older paperbacks. I'm not entirely sure when I picked this one up, but it is definitely an old one. I have The Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, another classic. And then I have Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I think it says quite a bit about my reading taste that I wasn't able to find a book with light in the title. Okay, we're on to our last pile of books. The prompt for November is ing words. So I have quite a few of these. I have The Killing Mind by Angela Marson. This is book 12 of the D.I. Kim Stone books. I have quite a few of these, but I haven't actually read any of them yet, so I want to get on with that. Next, I have The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. I have The Talking of Annie Thorne by C.J. Tudor. This looks like a very interesting book about a young girl who goes missing, and when she's found, she can't talk about it. Then I have The Kissing Booth by Beth Recalls. Again, I picked this up because it's been adapted. I don't know very much about it other than the fact that it looks quite entertaining. And finally, we're on to December. The December prompt is numbers. So I have a couple here. I have a very murdered copy of When Eight Bells Toll by Alistair MacLean. I have The Three Theban Plays by Sophocles, translated by Robert Fagles. We'll go with Fagles. The Three Theban Plays include Antigone, Oedipus the King, and Oedipus at Colonus. The last one is the only one I haven't read before, so I may try that one, I'm not sure. Then I have another non-fiction book, The Six of Seven Wives by Mary Macket. Mary Macket is a survivor of FLDS polygamy, and that's something I have an interest in researching, so I have a few books from the perspective of survivors of that. I then have lot number 249 by Arthur Conan Doyle. I love the Penguin Littleback book series. I don't have many of them, but when I see them I do pick them up. So this is a lovely little classic mystery. And then finally, my last book, I have Two-Way Street. This is a enemies to lovers road trip story, I believe. Okay, so that is all of the prompts gone through. I have a huge pile of books that I need to put away now. Isn't that great fun? I hope that I've given you some ideas if you're deciding to take part in this reading challenge this year. I certainly will be. I am planning to pick my selections from these books, so hopefully you will see some of these in some reading wrap-ups in the future. If you have any ideas of other books that would fit these prompts, please let me know in the comments. And if one of these books is your favourite, tell me in the comments. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you again soon.